I had become a pretty good asshole. Man, look at the church's history. It's diabolical. The way I explain it to like my students and my kids, it's just hard to keep a band together, man. When we started climbing this mountain today, you were a boy. When we get back down to the bottom of it, you will have the knowledge of a young man. What do you know about sex?
Welcome to the eleventylife podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of eleventylife. My name is Matt, and I'm so happy that you are here with us this week. Just a few little things before we start this week's episode. We have some exciting news for everybody who backed our album Rad Science on Kickstarter. We are so close to finishing the brand new Rock Candy Recordings studio and getting ready to fulfill some of those last few incentives like songs and studio time and recordings. We cannot wait to show you guys this brand new space because it is so much fun. It's where we're going to be making all of the new 11D records from here on out, and where we're going to be recording a ton of other friends. We are still putting together a Q&A episode of 11dylife for everybody who is listening to the show and wants to be a part of it, wants to have their voice included, wants to have their questions answered. And we sort of feel like you guys are already in the room with us when we're making these podcasts, and it would be great to be able to have some audio from you guys. So check the show notes. We have a link there if you want to be a part of the show. Click on it, make it happen. We can't wait to hear from you. If you joined us last week, then you were privy to an amazing conversation that we got to have with Jeff Fortson, lead singer of SquadFive-O. Davey and I both grew up being fans of his band, and it was super cool to be able to sit down and compare notes on the music industry, on faith, on life. Part 2 of this conversation is queued up and ready to go, and gosh, it is even better than the first half. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it.
I lived in Savannah, John lived in Orlando, and the other 3 guys all lived in Philadelphia. So it was like we weren't on the road, we weren't together.
Yeah.
And we all just had very different lives. I was married with 2 kids by then. John had just gotten married right after we finished recording the album.
Yeah.
And the other guys, I think the other 3 guys, I don't think any of them were married yet. I think Adam might have got married right towards the end. You know, we were just at different places. Like I couldn't just go on the road and not make money.
Yeah.
And whereas 18 or 19-year-old me would have slept on couches and in basements my whole life as long as I could make music. But then when your priorities start changing and you have things that are like more important than music, like to me, my family is and should be my priority in life. I'm not always great at making it that, but I had to be there. I had to support my family. And so the whole financial end of it, I think sort of played a role in it. And also just the whole artistic, I think Dave and Adam kind of wanted to do their own thing. Like I said, Dave was like a prolific songwriter. Adam wrote tons of songs, and they weren't necessarily songs that would be SquadFive-O songs, And then John, by that time, had started playing with The Kick, who then became Gasoline Heart. Yeah. And him and Lewis are like super good. They're like best friends, basically. And he loved being in that dynamic. He loved being with Lewis and making music. And so I just think, it finally just came to a head. I think Chris was the first guy that kind of said, I'm out, I just can't keep doing this. It's like, I think it was just a real stress on him. I think he had started dating Jamie, who is now his wife. Yeah. And he wanted a future with her, and he didn't really foresee how that could be possible, not making any money.
Sure.
So I think he was the first one to just kind of say, I'm out. And then Chris and Adam were like, well, if it's not these 5, then we just don't want to do it because it's the 5 people we want to do it with. And if Chris is out, then we're out. And I think John was just like, okay, well, then they're out. And John and I kicked around the idea of still trying to do it. But I think it just kind of, that ship had sailed. I mean, and to my own, like looking at myself back then, I was just short of 30. I was 29.
Yeah.
I was turning 30 that year. And as I kind of like step back and look now at it with some perspective, I had become a pretty good asshole by the time, I look back on some of the things I maybe have said or did on stage towards the end, and I was like, man, what a dick, like it became, when we started talking about music, this idea of it not being about the band, it being about everyone together.
Right.
It'd be about that we're all part of this thing together. We're on the stage, we're making the music, but it's really more about the crowd than it is what we're doing. And I think we'd lost sight of that. We became so obsessed with like making it. We got to make this our career. We have to be the next big thing. Yeah. our music is so much better than some of the stuff they're playing on the radio. So like we're the next ones up. We're the next ones up. And we just got so consumed with it that like I really feel like I lost who I was in the process. And it wasn't like a sudden thing. It was like a gradual thing that like I didn't really notice until it was over.
No, it's death by a million cuts. It's
exactly what it is.
Seems to be a recurring theme when we talk about even our band breaking up and going through all of that stuff. It was kind of the same thing. It was like, it is really, really difficult to keep in mind the very thing that made the band so much fun to begin with, because in some ways, and Jeff, correct me if you've had a different experience in this, but I feel like in some ways, like the band itself acts as a very specific individual, and they go through phases where like when the band starts growing up, as an adult, you start focusing on other things in life. In the band, you kind of start doing the same thing. Like the band collectively starts focusing on a whole bunch of other things, and they kind of go through their own sort of dark night of the soul. If there's any Joseph Campbell fans out there listening, and not many people make it through that. And like maybe the band doesn't make it through that, but afterwards, those relationships between individuals specifically can be salvaged. Yeah. And I feel like that's something you were hitting on even at the very beginning of the podcast, is just like maintaining that sort of, we're all in this together. This is us and the crowd, and we're friends. And I don't know, it sounds like that was a huge part of why you guys broke up, was maybe not having that sort of connection or camaraderie. Yeah.
And I mean, I definitely agree with you on that. I think that's what it was. It was just we just became this look at me sort of band. Like, you should realize how great we are, when actually, the attitude should have been, you guys should realize how great you guys are. Because it's just like with teaching, man, it's like, that's why I love teaching. Like the school I teach in is like a performing and visual arts school. I have so many kids from so many different backgrounds, like I have gay students, straight students, black students, white students, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, my school is like a microcosm of the world. But like, I feel like my job every day is to go in there, and whether a kid shows a gift in my subject area, my job is still to make that kid feel like they are valuable, that their opinion matters, that their contribution to the classroom culture matters. And really, that's what I love about teaching. I love Spanish. I'm fluent in the language, and I am fluent in the language because I fell in love with the language. But I realize that that's not everyone's bag. But as a teacher, I just feel like it's my job to, like, a kid should feel like they matter, like their voice matters in my classroom, and that they are a vital part of that culture, of that classroom culture. And that's what was great about Squad. Is like, I think people who came to see us were encouraged and felt like they mattered, because they do. And we kind of lost a vision of that. We got more consumed on what we were trying to do, and what we thought we should be, and what people should think of us. And like I said, it turned me into like an asshole, man, like a giant, like a jerk, like just this jerk.
Tell me about a moment that you regret the most in the band. If you could take back one moment, or one thing that you did, or one thing that you said.
I don't know if there's a specific one. It's like, there was this one time, we were on the road towards the end. We were actually at the Troubadour, oddly enough. This is when I thought Squad was going to break up, on the road. We played this show at the Troubadour, and John had drank too much. Adam had drank too much. Chris didn't really drink. I had a deal with my wife that I would only drink 2 drinks a day.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a really good deal.
Depending on the drinks, I mean.
well, yeah. I know. I mean, and I get it. It's like, because when you consume alcohol, sometimes your decision-making abilities are impaired.
True.
And in this case, I was sober. Chris was sober. I feel like Dave maybe was too, but I'm not sure. But John and Adam had definitely had a little more. And Dave broke a kick pedal, and we were on stage. Oh, during the set. And so we had to stop while he tried to find a kick pedal, and no one was being helpful. And he was like of the mindset, like he wasn't. I mean, he was really trying to fix it, but John and Adam were just, they didn't care. And I just felt like here I was, the front man of this band, up on stage in front of all these people, industry people, no less, the only one in his right mind. And I felt like I was just in the frying pan. Yeah. Like it was up to me. No jokes were hitting. Nothing was working. And it was just like, I lost my cool. I don't know if I actually started berating them on stage, but I know that after the set, like I just went ballistic. Like
you turned.
Oh yeah. I just had it out. I'm like, you guys don't even care because you don't even know what's going on right now. And like, I just remember we had this huge argument, just loud and everything. And it really ended like, the sun was coming up by the time that like everyone kind of like calmed down, but I still hadn't made peace. And so I left a note that said, I've had enough. You left
the hotel and you left a note for everyone to read?
I left. Yeah. Very dramatic. I should have been an actor.
Exit stage left.
Yeah. I left a note that said, if you need me, I'll be home.
Oh, so you left.
So the whole idea of I was going home. And then when you flip the note over, it said, and by home, I mean the van. So I slept in the van for the night, but I wanted them to feel the pain of me leaving.
So did you have like a turn the note over, like an arrow saying check the backside?
Yeah, they had a little circular arrow at the bottom.
And by home, I mean the van. That's like the worst punctuation you could put on a fight that was like super intense and you might be losing your band over it. You're like, I'll be at home /van.
Yeah, it was just like, it was a surreal fight, man. And like I went in the van. And the next day we had to do this thing. Like, I forget who set it up, but it was some daytime show. And it was like at Hollywood and Vine. And that there's like that big shopping center thing sort of there. Yeah. And there was some show for like 4-H kids. And it was like us. And
it's so bizarre.
It was so weird, dude. Like the weirdest, way weirder than any Christian show we ever did. But like, it was like us and this band. Was it that band called Lit? L-I-T?
Yes,
was there a band called
My Own Worst Enemy?
Okay, it was them.
No way.
Yes. Us and them. And so we're playing like half the band's hungover. We just had the biggest fight of our lives. Right. Like there still wasn't really any we hadn't made up or we hadn't come to a resolution. And we had to play this show. And so I don't know, just something inside of me. This is actually a very beautiful story. Something inside of me.
I hope so. It better turn around real quick.
Something inside of me and there's like these 4-H kids. They're like 8 years old. They don't know who our band is. They don't care who our band is. But like we start playing our songs and they just start going bonkers and they're like screaming and they're like, yeah, they're just so into it because like they think we're rock stars. And like, so I bring a kid up on stage and put them on my shoulders. And like, I'm like, talking to kids and give them the fist pat, the bump or whatever. And like, totally just embrace that we're just like, okay, guys, basically we're playing like a summer camp and there's a bunch of 8th graders. And so we're just,
and it totally reminded you of being in the womb with John. You're like, yes. You know what? I wish we could get back to that place.
And so anyway, it became this really like magical moment where like it was awkward, but it was also awesome. And like the kids kept coming up to us. Like, they wanted our stickers and they wanted this. And the 4-H people were like, you guys are really good. Would you think about doing some of our camps and stuff like that? And we're like,
Can you guys bring snacks next time? The kids are really into those too.
But yeah, and so it turned out to be like we went from our worst fight ever into like this really kind of magical, surreal, like it wasn't a show. It was just like we played the songs we were supposed to play, but we just had a good attitude about it. Like, I guess like the good attitude that I decided, okay, I'm just going to embrace this. And then that got contagious. Not that like I'm the catalyst, but it was contagious. Like, I think a lot of times the attitude you bring into something really dictates how that thing goes, And in this case, it just worked out superbly. And then Lit got up after us and they were just assholes. Like, they were just like, he literally looked at some 8-year-old girls like, I got my hotel room key, something for you. Like, making all these sexual like innuendos. They were like,
well, in Lit's defense, they are their own worst enemy. So they're not doing themselves any favors. Okay, so Jeff, 12-step programs. Okay, let's get. Tell me something that you said in this fight.
What do you regret, Jeff?
What's the thing? Because everybody has them. Like, I know when you're telling the story, you're thinking of some shitty thing that you said to somebody.
Do you regret the note? Do you regret the awful note you left?
The note wasn't even that bad.
You should have framed it and put it next to Bill Powers' note where he told us tooth and nail didn't want to sign it. Hang them up on the wall next to each other. Gosh, man, I don't really know. Cause I was so enraged. I was just spewing.
What were you upset about? What were you were upset about?
I was upset that that everyone was like out of their minds. Like they had all drank too much and none of them cared that we sucked, and none of them cared that I was dying on stage because I was having to try to keep the audience engaged while we fixed the kick pedal, which probably only took 2 minutes to fix, but seemed like 8 years.
Yeah.
I was just so enraged. I'm like, you guys don't even care about this. You want to make it your profession, but all you want to do is get messed up and have a good time. And meanwhile, I'm on stage sober, dying in front of everyone. I think I was more embarrassed than anything. And I think I just kept calling them all selfish a lot. And I may have even impugned Chris, because Chris is the greatest guy, dude. He's also a little bit socially awkward. And so he wasn't helping out any. I mean, he kind of recoiled into his shell. But I just really felt like it was probably just this whole Messiah complex I probably had at the time, was I'm on stage, suffering for you all because you're not capable of doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Do you think that maybe they were drinking because you were so hard to get along with? Hard to be around? I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. That's. I'm not making an assumption. I'm just asking.
Or it could just be that celebratory vibe. We're in LA, It's I think that was probably just part of it too, we're just in LA and there's alcohol backstage. And it's not like we were luscious, or even that they were. I told you, I had my agreement with my wife, but the other guys definitely weren't lush. It wasn't like they were faded all the time or drunk all the time or every time we played. It just that night, for some reason, they had partaken a little more than usual. And of course, that's the night when, shit goes wrong. And I'm the one left up there in my right mind. And it seemed to me at the time, now, if you ask them, they probably said oh, it was no big deal. But to me at the time, it seemed like I was just left up there to roast.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you kind of feel betrayed by them? You were taking on this responsibility of keeping it together and being super profesh, and they just weren't willing to come help you pull the car out of the ditch? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I felt like they had it's just more like everyone had their own agenda. Right. And it was really supposed to be about the band's agenda, but everyone just got their own agenda. And that just made me super angry, man. God, I wish I remembered some of it because it was probably really good stuff. I should have wrote it down.
Well, you did.
Yeah. You did write it down.
Yeah.
In that infamous letter. Davey's actually expressed a really similar sentiment about our band breaking up that I didn't even think about before. Yeah. It was on season 1 of the podcast. We were talking about how we broke up, and you were everybody wanted different things. Everybody was on different pages, and they wanted different things from the band, and we can never get everybody to want the same thing from the band and head in one succinct direction, and then throw on your mid-late 20s life in with that. And it's how much longer am I going to spend on the road? Will I ever put roots down somewhere? Are my relationships going to go anywhere?
There's just too many variables. And especially when you have 5 dudes in your band and you're in your 20s and everybody's growing up, and so many things happen separately in each person's life that causes their what their expectations are to change. So that's why bands don't one of the reasons why bands don't last is people just grow.
This is true. Yeah. And I think definitely too, when we added Dave on drums,
Grohl, right?
No, yeah. Dave Grohl.
Dave
absolutely.
Grohl or the ghost of Johnny Cash. Take your pick.
When Dave Grohl walked into our lives at Sound City. No, but when we added Dave, he was a prolific songwriter and he wrote great songs. But he was also a very strong personality, and he was sometimes very confrontational. And sometimes there would be camps in the band, Adam and Dave would be on one side and John and I would be on the other, and then Chris would be in the middle, so it would just be that got real kind of stressful sometimes. Yeah. But it's just because like I said, it's we were 5 very different people. Even John and I, very different people. And it is just hard to get everyone on the same page. I mean, we were talking about this, but at the same time, I mean, it was awesome, it was magical. There was something great about those 5 guys as well. We had some really good times and I think wrote our 2 best albums probably. I've definitely self-titled and Late News. So I think there was definitely something to that, but I also just feel like sometimes those big personalities don't always gel, and it's tough to kind of kind of keep them all together under the same van roof.
Yeah, dude. There were only 3 of us in our band, and we had a hard time with that as well. There's sometimes where, actually, I wanted to ask you this because it's something that I was thinking about a couple weeks ago about our band. Like, your band is the girlfriend, and it's hard to know whether or not you want to marry the girlfriend or if you need to just like call it a day and leave. And just like you're in, like you could be in a relationship with somebody, you're in a relationship with your band where you can have these amazing life affirming moments where it's like everything is so good. It's so good. And then all of a sudden you kind of end up with like girlfriend's drinking too much. It's not fun anymore. Yeah. Like you can also have those moments. Yeah. I don't know if it kind of felt like that for you, if it kind of put you in the situation where you sort of like, cause I feel like we did this for years. We would like hem and haw over, should we quit the band? Should we leave the girlfriend? Should we go try to do something else? Should we do, and it just like, we just ran it into the ground, not knowing what to do with it.
Well, we did like it. I would say that like that kind of situation was only true for us, maybe between Self-Titled and Late News, or I guess between Self-Titled and the band breaking up. Like from that, because up until that point, it seemed like we had taken steps towards making it more of a viable option. You know what I'm saying? Like, because we started off on the small independent out of Atlanta, then we made it to Tooth and Nail. That was like our biggest goal when we first started. Man, we want to be on Tooth and Nail. Yeah. And then, you know, we made it to a major label, and it just seemed like we were taking steps the whole time. So it never seemed like the band was going to break up, because it just always felt like the band was progressing as far as the business end of it went, or the professionalism end of it. But definitely between, you know, Self-Titled, the writing of the Self-Titled and the band breaking up, there were times in there for sure. I remember another time we were driving through Colorado, maybe heading towards Wyoming.
Yeah.
And John tried to quit right then. Like, he just wanted to quit. And we had like, I don't know if we had a situation, like a show or something that didn't go well, or he had an argument with someone, but he was playing with the Kick by then. And he loved the dynamic of that band. He just loved being with Lou. Yeah. It was a totally different dynamic, and he didn't necessarily enjoy the dynamic of our personalities in our band anymore. And he's just like, I just want to go home and make music with Lou, because like that works. That makes sense to me. Yeah. And I just remember us really like having to talk him into not quitting the band. We were in the middle of a tour, you know, and just saying, we just stick it out. You know, it's like, we're going to have disagreements. So things like that would happen. And then you'd have some amazing show where you're just like, dude, this is amazing. Why would we ever want to do anything else? And then also, I think part of it, especially for me, is just that, you know, from 96, 97-ish to 2000, 2005, all I did was SquadFive-O. Yeah. So like, it was like, for me, it was almost like in a relationship, you date someone and then you start thinking of life without them. And you're like, well, who am I outside of that relationship?
Who am I without the cape? Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. So I was like, I've been Jeff Squad, or Jeff from Squad, for like 9 years. Like, who am I without that? Like, it's almost like I defined myself by that I was part of this band.
Yeah.
And so that was the big thing for me. Now, the way it ended for me was like, I wasn't the one actually saying, let's hang it up. You know, I'm the one who got the call that said, I am hanging it up, you know, and then 2 more calls that said, we're hanging it up too.
Who was the first person?
So it was kind of hard.
Who was the first person to call you?
It was Chris.
Okay.
Yeah, Chris was the first guy who he decided that like that he you know, he wanted to like settle down. He wanted to get married and things like that, and it was just tough. It's stressful on him to keep doing the road. And then Dave and Adam followed right after that, and then of course John and I tried to make it work a little bit, but it was just clear that it had kind of run its course. But yeah, it was kind of I don't know. It's kind of weird. And I mean, I'd had some people say to me, we toured with that band Letter Kills. Do you guys remember Letter Kills? We did a tour with them, which actually was a ton of fun. And we were in Las Vegas one night and we were hanging out. And one of those guys asked me, he's like, what are you going to do? Like, you ever thought about what you're going to do if like the band doesn't work out? And I'm like, I guess I'll go back to washing windows. That's what I was doing. I go, but I don't think that's going to be my profession. Like, I'll probably go back to school and maybe try to figure it out. And they're like, you're probably going to be a youth pastor or a school teacher. That's like one of those guys told me. I'm like, really? It's like, yeah. you look like a lot of your bit on stage is kind of like youth pastor or like the crazy cool school teacher sort of thing. I'm like, really? And then I guess when the band broke up, I went back to window washing, and I never felt called to full-time ministry. But like I was like, man, I wouldn't mind working with young people, and being some type of positive influence in the life of young people. I kind of feel like that's probably more or less what my calling would be, not necessarily in the organized church environment, but like I could definitely see working with young people. And then I went back to school and became a teacher and stumbled into Spanish and decided that's what I wanted to teach. But that's funny enough, like towards the end of the band, like someone had mentioned that to me. Maybe that's what's planted the seed that, oh, you'll be a teacher. I'm like, maybe I will be a teacher. Yeah. That's what I ended up walking into. But yeah, I don't know. You know what else is weird? After Squad broke up, Letter Kills called me and asked me to be their singer.
Oh, really?
Wow. And why didn't you want to try that out?
Because they lived in California. I was like, are you moving to Georgia? They're like, no, man. Move to California.
Before I say no, are you moving to Georgia?
I think I said something along the lines, let me think about it. But I just, just ended a band, wife and kids. I was like, I don't think we're moving to California. I was flattered. They were nice guys. Yeah. But yeah, and I think too, right before the band broke up, we played a show in Orlando that we booked for ourselves and like a local promoter just promoted it for us. And it was the best show we had played in forever. Wow. Like tons of kids there, so much fun. Like I said before, the spirit of it was really good. And on the ride home from that show back up to Georgia with the Philly guys, I said, guys, why don't we just start fresh right now? Like, just get rid of our management, get rid of our booking agent. Let's go DIY. We'll manage ourselves, book ourselves.
You're stressing me out with this conversation right now. It's like so much responsibility. Man. It's like, how about we just make the worst decision our band has ever made? I mean, but I know sometimes things reach critical mass, and like that totally makes sense to kind of be there. What was their response to hearing you say we should abandon ship?
Yeah, man, maybe. Yeah, sure. But no, I was just of the mindset that like it is about the people. Like I come full circle by that time. That it took that show to be like, it's about the people. It's because we connected with those people, and if we took control of our own, if we didn't have managers telling us what to do or booking agents booking us weird shows, maybe if we just took more ownership, it would be awesome again. Because it hadn't been awesome for a while. But then we got home, and I think maybe a week later, or not even that long, maybe that's when Chris called and said he was done.
Did your management try to talk you out of breaking up?
Yeah, they did. And then Louis, of course, tried to. But it was just like, what can you do, man? I mean, if someone doesn't want to do it, they don't want to do it. And once Chris hung it up, which I think now was like the right thing to do. I mean, I look back and when we did our reunion shows, like Chris apologized to me for breaking, quitting the band. I'm like, dude, it was time. What are you apologizing for? It was time. Yeah. Someone had to pull the plug. It just happened to be you. And I go, there's no bitterness here, man, because I feel really bad about it. It's like, buddy, there's nothing to feel bad about. Like, I live a very full life right now. Yeah. And I'm so glad SquadFive-O is part of my story. But I'm also glad that like that's not my only story. Like that's a chapter in my story. Right. And it really formed who I am now. I just told him there's nothing to apologize for, man. It was time. It was definitely time for it. It had run its course, man.
What do you think he was apologizing for?
I think he felt like that we would have kept trying to make it work, or at least made another album if he hadn't stepped away. I mean, it had done. In my opinion, like that story completed itself, like that is the way that Squad should have gone out. Now, these reunion shows we've done have been awesome, but the thing that's been awesome about them is that they were totally unexpected. Like, it's not like we're like, let's get the band back together. It just so happened Five-O contacted us and they're like, what would it take for you guys to do some shows with us? And we're like, you need to fly us there.
Back hotels, to the old fly us to Seattle trope again.
Yeah. And it's been awesome because there's no ego involved. It's just like we're playing these songs. It's fun. The five guys we got playing, like this was the original lineup when we went to Five Guys, with the Garbinski brothers, John and I and Chris. And it's just the spirit's awesome, man. It's just like It's just so much fun. It's so positive. It's funny. It's it's a blast, and it's fun just to play the songs. And there's no like we're not trying to make it. None of us are thinking, oh, we're about to record another CD or get signed to so-and-so label. It's just like, oh, this is a really great opportunity to play these songs again for some people who really like them and connect with them, And so Chris, if you're listening,
he's not.
You're not to blame, buddy.
He's not.
No, that's awesome. Chris was actually my point of contact for the rest of you guys. And just off the very tiny bit of email correspondence that I have with him, he does seem like a pretty nice pretty nice guy. It sucks that we never got to play any shows with you guys, because I feel like we should have at least like crossed paths at like a Cornerstone or like an Ichthus or some festival like that or whatever. But yeah, it's pretty sweet. I think you've got a really fun story, Jeff. There's a lot of it kind of hits on some themes that we always seem to hit on this podcast. Like
definitely.
Band breakups are so hard, and finding out who you are without the band is oftentimes really hard for people. It was hard for us.
Yeah, and there's so many universal truths in a band breaking up, and like it's very similar for almost every band that breaks up.
So we had something about being in the band continued to give us a much more complicated relationship with Christianity, and I think Davey and I probably still have a complicated relationship with it. I think there are aspects of it that we're constantly trying to reclaim for ourselves, but our worlds have just changed so much. Or actually, I don't want to speak for you.
Yeah, I think for me, it's more with just the organization of it and the human aspect of all of it. And it's just, there's so much that, and you were mentioning this before, it's like, well, what does that have to do with my marriage? Like, what does this thing have to do with my marriage? And why do I have to hate this particular thing?
Right.
Yeah, it's just like this. What we have all done to it has just bastardized it so much. It's sometimes really difficult to see the actual fundamental truth there.
Yeah, so I'm kind of interested in what's your relationship to it like now. I know that it seemed like you felt eager to sort of express some of those thoughts at the beginning of the podcast, but I know that you guys had some experiences that were kind of hard to meld together within the Christian music scene.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of that probably came from like what you guys were saying, where people expected you to expound on your faith or to actually bring a message, like the Supertones used to do, where they would stop and actually preach like during their show or whatever. Yeah, I think when we first started, we were much more inclined towards that sort of thing. And then the more that you saw the kind of the way the beast works, like not the beast, like the biblical beast, the beast, like the music industry.
Similar.
We get it.
So you're tracking.
We grew up Protestant. We know about 666 and the beast and the end of the world.
I think the more we saw the way that the music industry works, it's just like the music industry is the music industry. It's not like something that sets the Christian music industry apart. It's still just business. And so, I mean, like most people who were in that market who had a critical thinking mind that could ponder things and wonder, not just say like, oh, everything's great.
Or who chose to think about it long enough. You start
thinking like, you got to realize that like, man, there's a lot of people profiting off the name of Christ, that really it's just like, it's a business, and should we be marketing the faith? I think I wrote a song called $2 Grand and a Lot of Hassle on Late News Breaking, kind of like that whole thing about people marketing the faith and selling it. And so you kind of like get indignant about being a part of that system. You're like, man, I'm a part of that system. And like our attitude towards it, like our whole attitude is like, we just want to be a band. We're not like a ministry. We're just a band, which is maybe when we first started out, I did view it more as kind of like a ministry, but not in regards of like, some ministry organization, just like our job. We're bringing a message, just like Minor Threat or 7 Seconds brought a message.
What was your message, Jeff? I mean, if you could sum it up, and maybe it changed over the years and maybe it sort of refined itself, but.
Oh, without a doubt, when Squad started, like the message was like that the love of Christ is more than anything, or the message of Christ was about unity and loving people regardless of the differences. So we had that whole like racial unity thing within our message. We had this idea of like, drug-free youth was definitely of our message. And just this idea of like respecting people and respecting, like, I think one of our earliest stickers had like a businessman shaking the hand of like a punk rocker. And some people were like, what is this about selling out? I'm like, no, it's about like, it doesn't matter if you're wearing a suit or you got a spike bracelet on. It's like, love your fellow man, So that was probably like our message to begin with. And then, after that, like, I don't really know if there was a message. It's just the message was just like, our shows are positive and uplifting. And like, we have these songs, and it's always this idea of we wanted things you could like chant to, or big choruses that like gang vocals. Like that's that whole kind of straight edge hardcore thing.
Yeah,
too.
the shared experience. It goes even down to the way that you guys were approaching songwriting. It sounds like it's like you want to give the audience an excuse to be a part of what it is that you're doing.
Exactly. So I think when we started, it was much more ministry minded, but I think as it went on, there was like less of a message of like that, and until where it's just like a message of togetherness. Like here we are all in this one place. This is awesome. And then by the time like late news and all that kind of, there really wasn't per se a message. It was just, the message was, you should like us because we're great. At least that was that's where my heart was at the time. But stepping away from the band, or not stepping away, but the band dissolving, I got a lot more involved in like working with young people. Even before I was a teacher, I started volunteering and working with like junior hires at our church and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And doing camp over the summer and things. And once I started pouring into those kids, like, it's kind of like, I found like my faith reinvigorated. Like I found like just my overall attitude reinvigorated, where like, it's not about me. It's about like challenging young people, encouraging young people, being some type, and whatever. It doesn't have to be all doom and gloom and serious, but also like, just because I'm happy and I crack a lot of jokes, sometimes I think people assume that means I don't know a whole lot.
About what?
About like, I don't know, like deeper things like gay marriage or like the legalization of pot, or, what role Christianity should play in modern American culture, or the fact that America hijacks a lot of God's promises for the nation of Israel. Like this whole idea that like we're God's chosen people, it's less like, or God's chosen country. Like these are things I mull over all the time. Or whether or not, like, what are my thoughts on like the church as like a corporation or like an entity. And I think I was just listening to one of y'all's podcasts. I'm bad with names, but it's the guy that he works with like Elevation, or he worked with Elevation worship in the past.
Our friend Price, who plays guitar for them sometimes. Yeah.
That was a very insightful podcast. It really made me think. Like he had some good points of view, like I'd never considered. That, like, of course, when you get an organization that big, and like there's going to be people who inevitably treat other people poorly, but then you also see entire family dynamics changing because of the organization. So these are like things I mull over. But like I'm pretty goofy and pretty funny, but at the same time, like I do think about like these things. Like the other night, like I work with a small group of high schoolers now at our church, and they're sophomores actually. My son's in the group, and like one of them just the other day was just like, they said something that, man, that's gay, and like I just got super serious with them, like all of a sudden, like, and I was just like, guys, I'm going to challenge you right now. Let's choose a different word. Like, what good is it? Like, you call yourself a Christ follower, but you want to call something gay. Like, when you're calling it gay, you're saying that you don't like it. Is there another word you could use to describe that? Because if a gay person was in here right now, how they, all the basic cliche stuff like you would use to argue that point. But I was pretty intense about it. And I goes like, guys your age say that all the time, but why? Like, why do you say
just went
it?
Like total PC on this kid.
Yeah, and it's not even that like I'm super PC. It's just that like I think most Christians most people that would use that word, they don't really know a gay person. It's like most Christians that don't want to allow the government to allow same-sex unions, they don't really even know gay people. Sure. Like, I'm not saying this is true for all Christians, but it's like do you even associate with a homosexual person on like a daily basis? Or is it just this group of people that you have in your mind?
So,
you know?
yeah, I mean, the other side of that too is like, gosh, maybe I'm like putting myself out there right now. Davey and I both have a lot of gay friends, and we work on a lot of projects with gay friends and colleagues and coworkers and whatever else. And simply because I grew up in a time where, like, in high school, that was what you said. Like, if something was kind of lame or dumb or whatever, it was gay. And none of us ever thought, we never equated that with homosexuality or with somebody's sexual preferences or what. And then even now as an adult, I'm still like, I have to catch myself. Like, my gay friends think it's funny when I'm like, yeah, that's super gay, because they don't really care, and we all kind of grew up with the same context for that. But I catch myself still at times being like, you know what? No matter how you grew up or what situation you found yourself in, the world is changing. The world shifts. Like, people's awareness shifts, and if you want to be a part of practices that are going to make that are going to make the world a more friendly place for everyone, like, you can give up calling things gay. Like, you can find another word. You're exactly right.
Well, and it's not like this hot button issue for me, but it's just like, I'm like, well, here's a group of young men to challenge, you know, like, it's like,
this is total youth, Pastor Jeff, a group of young men, a group of adolescents. I can really challenge their worldview.
Dude, sometimes they give us like 30 minutes to do these like small group things. I'm like, that is way too long. If I could like, I'll watch my clock, and like, if they dismiss us to like a small group, I'm like, oh gosh, 45 minutes. But like 15 minutes is top is what I need with those kids. And then we need to go play something. Like, we need to go, there's like this 9-square game we play. It's like crazy, but like, we need to go do that instead of sitting
because
around
the
and
meaningful connection for people, I feel like, in that age group is the expansion of energy. Like, let's go play and do something together. Let's play together.
Yes, physical interaction.
Yeah, not like let's go figure out a way to challenge our world.
Let's wax philosophically.
Yeah, I know. It's like nobody that age gives a shit about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I have these two guys that like I mentored from like 6th grade to 12th grade that I still keep in contact with. They're like 24, 25 now. And we used to just play. I mean, we just go out, we'd play football, whatever it was, we'd go out and do something. Like, we still keep in contact with each other, but we didn't sit down and now we would, when they got older and more mature, we would have like longer conversations and deeper conversations, but they were never forced. It's not like you have 30 minutes to go get in this deep conversation with this group of kids.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I got one pounding his head against the wall. Literally pounding his head against the wall. But they're a great group of guys, but dude, 15 minutes at top. That's all we need. But I'm funny, but it's also like, I don't know. I like to dig into things too. And more often than not, it's not even me having a conversation with someone else. It's me like having a conversation in my own mind.
Yeah.
And I even get to the point where I do it in Spanish to see if I can do it in Spanish too, like defend this argument.
Okay, so Jeff, how do you do that? One of the things that I'm realizing as I get older, like living my life being completely at the whims of my mind and my emotions, like I'm having to take physical steps to sort of center myself mentally and emotionally. Whereas like when you're a teenager or you're just growing up or you're sort of becoming the person that you're going to be, it really is sort of a free for all, and then it kind of settles down. And then for me, it's like, it's not going to settle down on its own. I've got to figure out ways to like deal with it. What are some of those ways that you make space for your thoughts, that you make space to kind of explore these types of things like deeper, be it like a, social situation or spirituality or whatever it is?
In my car a lot, like I have like a 25 minute drive to work every morning. So I do a lot of it then and on the drive home. Yeah. And then sometimes just like we go to the beach here when it's really nice. And sometimes I just like, there's nothing better I like than sitting at the beach and just thinking. Like I'll just put on some music and then just kind of sit there and think. I don't know. It's just sometimes like, and running. I run. I say I run.
I do that a lot
like
too.
I try to run at least 2 times a week. But and I love it. Like some people hate running, but I love the idea that like my legs took me there and back. But like I do a lot of thinking when I'm doing that too. And it's just like sometimes things will just grab my mind or I'll just think like, here's a point of view. Try to defend it.
Yeah.
All right, defend this point of view or defend that point of view. I also do a lot of praying. Well, not a lot. I try I try to pray in the car too on the way to work, kind of center myself before getting into my school day. It's always like, it's funny. And I pray out loud because I have like ADD. I've never been diagnosed, but I watched an episode of some show on PBS about adult attention deficit
Mr.
disorder.
Rogers' Neighborhood.
And I felt like they were talking about my life story. I was like, I probably have AADD. But at any rate, like I'll pray out loud. And this is like last year on the way to school, I was praying out loud, and I was like talking to God, and then this car cut me off. Like mid prayer, I was just like, you asshole.
And God was like, what was that, Jeff?
And then I was like, yeah, God, if we could work on my temper, that'd be good too. And then like a couple months later, it happened again. Instead of calling him an asshole, not the same guy, of course, but some other car, it's like called him a dick. And I was like, well, at least my vocabulary is developed.
I'm growing as a human.
I'm growing. I'm using new words.
Yes.
But it's like,
which all seem to center around the abdominal region. You're like, you hip?
I actually tell my students these stories too. They think it's hilarious, just so they know I'm not perfect,
No, so it sounds like maybe Christianity has a kind of centering role. Like it seems like you derive some joy or some peace just from going through the practices of this sort of stuff, or using that to sort of inform the way that you view the world, or the way you relate to kids, or even the way that you kind of approach the classroom. Like, I feel like as I'm hearing you talk, it sounds like you sort of use Christianity almost to help humanize the other people around you in your life, or to bring perspective to that.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not ritualistic. Like I'm a really bad Christian, but to me, like when I look at, like, I don't look at Christianity. I look at like Christ. All right. And from what I understand about Christ, and from what people that I would consider to be a good source or reliable source, or people that I have conversations with about this kind of stuff, like I look at Christ. Because if I look at Christianity, I mean, Christianity's flawed, man. Look at the church's history. It's diabolical. But at the same time, like,
basically.
Exactly. And I look at Christ himself and my understanding of him, and like, what was his mission? Like, what was his statement to the world? And that's kind of what I keep my eye on. And it's from that like my faith has evolved. It's like, I am a Christian. I guess what you would call, like, I don't know. Sometimes I like to say I'm a believer.
What is it that makes you a Christian, Jeff? I always kind of wonder about this, because whenever I talk to people about this, because I'm we're all on our own journeys, and I'm kind of just infinitely fascinated by what that means for different people. I
guess, like, to me, like, being a Christian means that, like, you put your trust in who we call Jesus Christ, right? What is this idea that, like, to me, when I look at the world, I don't see, like, I see beauty, but I see beauty that must have had an origin. That all of creation, like, not even our world, but all of, like, the galaxies and universes and all that stuff had to have some starting point. And to me, that starting point would be the creator, who we would call God in English, capital G or whatever. And that this God, this creator, created a being in his likeness, which would be mankind. And to some degree, what he put into mankind is his image, that image being this, like, the ability to reason, the ability to fellowship fully with its creator. But doing so, knowing that if he did so, and that if he put within us free will, that ultimately mankind would choose itself over him. But God, of course, fully knowing that, chose to create us anyway. And if he chose to create us, then it must have been worth the creating. It must have been worth even knowing that the thing that he was creating that could fellowship with him like no other part of this world would ultimately choose itself over him. But the awesome thing, and I guess what I would say is Christianity, is this idea that God decided not to leave us in that state, or not to abandon us, even though at times we choose to abandon him. And so he came down, and this idea, which I don't think we could fully understand, this idea that there being a one God, but with three persons or three different abilities. And I think the closest anyone's ever come to explaining it, that I think like, oh, that's a pretty good analogy, is that water is always water, whether it's gas, liquid, or solid. It's still the same chemical makeup. And so here's this God that's these three different things, but still the same thing, chose to, like, come down and bring us back to him, but not like militantly.
Yeah.
He chose, and like, who did Christ hang out with? You know, Christ hung out with the prostitutes and the tax collectors and the scum of society. And who looked down? He like talked down to Christ. It was the religious people of the time.
Yeah,
you know?
I think if there's one thing that keeps me like consistently asking questions and trying to dig into this stuff, it literally just is the basic narrative of Christ, of Jesus. I do think that there's something incredibly compelling about the narrative of him as an individual, but not just that, like his place within the context of the Bible. And I think that's kind of what keeps me coming back there and saying, I think there's something here. Yeah. If at the end of today, Jeff, you were to find out that like everything ever written in the Bible was a lie, it was made up, it was false, it was fictitious, and there was undeniable proof that were true, would you wake up tomorrow and live your life any differently?
That's hard. Man, that's a great question. I don't know if I would live any different. Well, but at the same time, I feel like there's that moment when I was 16, when I accepted Christ, that like from that moment on, I see everything through that lens, if that makes any sense. Now, that lens is refocused from time to time. For instance, like I would have never drank. Southern born Christian, you know, like converts, you know, got to be like, you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't chew. You know, like I said, 27, that's when I would say I had my first drink. And like now, I drink from time to time. When I first became a Christian, no. Or just like throwing away your music when you first become a Christian. You know, it's this idea like, but my faith has matured. Like, and I've just found Christianity or Christ to be bigger than America's version of Christ, you know, or even the South, the Bible Belt's version of Christ.
Do you feel like the band helped you do that?
I think so, to some degree, probably. I think it really did. I mean, but I also just think that working out my faith personally helped me do that as well. Because, you know, if like, I don't just like, there's some people just accept everything, but I'm not one of those people that just accept everything, you know, like, I had friends who like got rid of their satellite TV and used only a Christian satellite provider. I'm like,
what?
I don't
what a racket.
I don't want to live in that bubble, you know? And I had friends who became staunch Calvinists. And then after a while, we're like, maybe we were wrong about that. You know, it's like, you know, I don't know. I just think it's like, would I live differently? It's like, I don't know, because I feel like who I am is who I am because of Christ, because of the faith. Like, I feel like that's like who I am. I think, my personality is my personality, but I think my fundamental way of thinking ever since 16 has been shaped not by the church. At times it has been shaped by the church, but more than anything has been shaped by my investigation into who Jesus is.
Your personal investigation, right?
And to what my faith is and how exactly my faith is shaped by God and by my relationship with him. I mean, I would still call myself a Christian. I mean, we go to church pretty much every Sunday. You know, one of my best friends is the pastor at the church that we go to, and we actually meet. We talk about stuff like this, actually, like really like heavy stuff. We meet up for coffee and different things like that. But I do think, like, I don't know, gosh, that's a great question. I guess at first I would probably just ask, like, how did they prove all this was wrong? You know, like, that would be my first thing. Like, what?
Your belief becoming defensive about itself.
Yeah. At the same time, it's like, you know, I know there's certain people that take everything in the Bible word for word and literal, but I'm more of the mindset that, like, a lot of that earlier stuff, especially, came from, like, oral tradition that wasn't written down till years after. Like, is 7 days in Genesis exactly 7 24-hour periods? Like, to me, no, like, it doesn't have to be that. But I do have some friends that say, yes, it is that. And surely God could create the world in 7 days. I'm like, I'm not saying he couldn't. I'm just saying, like, is that a crucial part of my faith to say that, like, the world was made in 7 days? It's not. Like, to me, it could just be 7 periods of time.
Right.
You know, it doesn't have to be 7 days. How old is the earth? I don't think it really matters to me how old the earth is. Like, that's not or if they ever proved evolution. I don't think that evolution would destroy my faith. Like, a lot of my personal kind of theology is shaped a lot by C.S. Lewis and stuff I've read by him. But I just think he did he just did a really great job of just saying, like, a lot of this shit doesn't matter. Yeah. Like this is the basis of that, or even the idea about like I don't know if you've ever read The Great Divorce, but like I read it once a year just because.
Favorite books, actually.
Yeah. And it's just, to me, it's just like a phenomenal allegory of like, it's not ultimately God who chooses, but us who choose. It's like we choose, and it's just like, if a soul can be turned, it will be turned. But a soul that refuses to be turned will not be turned, and it's like, or asking God to do the intrinsically impossible, like giving us free will and then withholding that right from us.
Okay.
Now, I'm giving you free will, but I'm going to make you choose me. Yeah, like that makes sense to me. Like when he breaks that stuff down, or this idea of that, like, especially in the Great Divorce, about like multiple opportunities being given, and like, I don't know, every time I read that book, I feel like I get something new out of it. And when I say read, I should also say the last couple of years have been on audiobook.
Audible.
Yeah. It's not me like snuggling up in a chair to read.
Hey, you're a 90s woman on the go. Got to take your books on tape.
You got to have it, man. Got to have it.
That's awesome, dude.
But yeah, I mean, I'm working it out, but I feel like, the foundation of what I believe has pretty much been the same. Like my faith is founded on Christ. If there is research done to disprove certain things, then like, I don't know. I'm probably of the mind where I would start questioning things.
Well, I ask people that question primarily as like a thought experiment, because I think I started asking myself that, and I'm like, it's kind of for me, it was a really centering exercise where I'm like, what is this really for?
Right.
Like, I don't know. I don't know that God is there. I have like an idea of God that has been shaped by information I was given at a young age and my own personal experience, like in the world, but that's all subjective. Like, and everybody has those different experiences, and we're all kind of trying to get under this one umbrella of like, can we agree on this? Can we agree on that? And I think I've lived with those conversations and those ideas of God and of religion being so divisive and just not ending well. I'm like, if I'm going to implement a practice or a belief or a thought pattern into my life, I want to be bearing witness to the reality of how things are. Like, because I grew up seeing so many people that were like, you have to be well-versed in apologetics. You have to know why you believe what you believe. And the people that sort of went down that path, it was just like, the older that you get, the more you realize a lot of that's just like having a really fragile ego. Like, well, I need to be able to defend everything because I can't look stupid in front of my friends, because I can't look like an unintelligent person. And it's like defending the Bible, like being able to defend every single thing that you believe in the Bible. Who does that serve? Like, really, who does it serve? Does it make you treat your friends any better? Does it keep your marriage together? Does it make you, like treat your kids right? Does it mean that you can go in and your coworkers think that you're fun to be around? Like, on your deathbed, will people have remembered great things about you, or will they have a hard time figuring out what to say? What does it really matter?
It seems like a colossal missing of the point.
What do you mean?
I mean, so not you're missing the point. I'm saying that, like, you asked the question, if someone were to tell you that everything written in the Bible was false, or like they disproved it scientifically in some way. Yeah, well, that is a book that was written by human beings that you're telling me now is not as true as I once thought it was.
Or like, if the words on the page are not as true,
but that
like
doesn't
the
mean
practices that you implement in your life still can be. Like, if you're deriving joy or peace from those kinds of things.
But I think that, like, for me, earlier in life, that would have really shaken my world.
Sure.
But right now, it's like, well, what I believe is I've learned from that book.
Sure.
But what I believe is something that's like
outside the book.
It is an actual experience that is internal to me.
Sure.
That, like, if you tell me this book is wrong, I'm like, well, I don't care. Like, I know the internal experience that I've had.
Yeah.
So it's like when you talk about like apologetics, and I've had friends who have gone down that route, and they're like, okay, well, I need to be able to defend and prove that it's possible that it could have been just 7 days.
And I don't think all that's bad.
It's just missing the point.
Yeah, I think like tying up your identity in that, it's like, I've never seen it make anybody happy. I've only seen them kind of turn into
the internal experience of like the love and understanding that we're all continually gaining more of, hopefully, and nobody's anywhere close to where we'd like to be, but it's like that thing and being able to instead of argue with somebody about how my book is right, being able to share that with somebody.
Yeah, it's like, who cares if your book is right?
I don't give a shit.
It doesn't affect how you treat people. Like, you can put goodness in the world. Jeff, I know that you've probably listened. I know you've heard a few of the podcasts and everything, but a lot of what we're figuring out this podcast is kind of our own thought experiment, where we love hearing different people's like experiences within Christianity, and obviously because ours was so shaped and weirded up, I guess, within the Christian music industry, that sort of is the thing that we all come back to say, oh yeah, we have this in common. But that's just kind of become a starting point. It really has led us to a lot of other conversations, and it's broadened the conversation a lot. I don't know necessarily what your takeaway would be from your experience there.
Wait, rephrase the question. What'd you say again?
What do you feel like your takeaway?
I want to make sure I'm answering the takeaway from what?
How do you feel like being in the band for all those years affected the way that you view Christianity now? Do you feel like you have a healthier view of Christianity now?
Like corporate Christianity?
Sure.
Mega churches and all that? I mean, I guess I'm still sort of leery of that stuff. And then, I mean, I guess there's also like people that I would think would have like sound theology, and people who maybe their theology is not so sound. The band's role in that, I mean, I think the band's role, like I said before, when we first started, we were just like these kids excited to tell everyone about how much God loves them and that everyone matters and we should all get along, which is weird. It's funny to think that at the same time in our shows in Georgia, kids were like stealing state flags off flagpoles and burning them because we had like super racist state flag for a while. That felt like a really cool movement too. Yeah. I mean, I feel like, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like now, like, I don't know if I want to say I have a better understanding of God, but I'm almost less devout than I ever have been. I don't know if that makes any sense. And I don't know what role the band played in that. I do know that, like, when we were putting out Late News Breaking, and I think a couple of the songs had the word shit in them, I know my wife had a really hard time with that. I think she was working at the church we were at the time, and I think she was just more worried
having
about
to explain it to friends and
having to explain it to people. But I don't know. I feel like I just kind of like what you guys were saying. Like, I've just reached this. I'm 42 now, man. Like, I just reached this point of view where like my faith is what my faith is, and it's always evolving. But one thing that's never evolved is I've never doubted that like God loves me, that God has a plan for me, that SquadFive-O was part of that plan, that even though it failed in the eyes of many people, it wasn't really a failure because like there's parts of me that wouldn't even be how they are now if it weren't for that band. Certain ways of thinking that I wouldn't have if it weren't for that band, or certain coping mechanisms to deal with people who you don't always get along with all the time. Learning to coexist with people like that. But I think you would look at me now, like, you know, and like my vocabulary, sometimes I might use words that people wouldn't necessarily consider Christian words to use, you know, but like, or I always joke with my students that if you ever hear me say damn, hell, or ass, I'm getting pretty angry, and you should stop pushing the issue. Whatever it is you're doing, you should readjust your behavior. And I think I was telling that story to some students, and this kid came back in from the bathroom, and I said, sit your damn ass down and shut the hell up. And then everyone lost it. The kid didn't know what was going on. And so then I had to re-explain. I was just explaining. But at any rate, like people would probably look at my, like the language I use or the way I talk sometimes and be like, wow, like, you know, you're straying from God. And I was like, no, I'm not. I just realized that like, it's not about the words you use. It's about the intent of the words you use.
It's like, seriously, you're going to come down on me for using like a choice 4-letter word, just either in a joke or just like laughing around with someone and having
or as an exclamation,
or as an exclamation to something. But you're gonna sit and watch like Fox News and like all of the crazy, like you're gonna read tweets from our president. To me, using curse words and like saying something intended to hurt or defame or defile or to scandalize someone, that is cursing. That is like, what is your intention behind the use of your word?
Oh yeah, that's like, if you think of like in the Bible, like it says, you know, cursing or whatever, it's like these words we're using didn't even exist. Like whatever words we might consider curse words didn't exist.
It's a completely cultural thing.
It's always been about the intent of what you're saying. Now there's certain words that are maybe stronger in nature, and like if you say them, like people are like, it's like the record scratches or whatever. But to me, it's like my friend Grant described it like this. It's like, are you robbing someone of grace or denying someone of grace and love.
That's a really beautiful way of putting that, Jeff.
Yeah. It goes, and if you're not doing that, then are you really cursing? You know, like and that's my pastor friend. Yeah. I was like, man,
then, like, is it really an argument? Are we? Yeah, I feel like it's people want to make the argument about whatever the topical thing is, the easy thing on the top or on the surface, and it's like, no, it's never about
dogma.
That. Yeah, exactly.
It's all dogma.
And I just feel like my faith is mature, or whatever you would call it, enough to like those words don't bother me. And it's not just like I'm cool and I can use these words. It's just like I use the words I use. And if I'm using any words to tear you down rather than build you up, then the words I'm using are the wrong words. You know, I always feel like I would explain it. Like, I think I explained to my own kids this way. And the first time they heard me say shit because I hit a curb or something, you know, it's like, and I always say that's my go-to word. If I die in a car accident, that would be my last word on earth. But,
shit, 5-0.
But I said, if I call you an idiot and I have just as much hate in my heart.
That hurt my feelings when I heard you say it just now.
Yeah. If I call you an idiot and I have just the same amount of hate in my heart as if I call you an asshole, should I feel better about myself for calling you an idiot? Like I really chose a better word to use there and I didn't have to use a curse word. Like, it's like, no, both of them are like the same thing. You know, they're both, depending on what's in my heart. It doesn't matter.
However, we did have a conversation a few minutes ago about the word gay and about what's in my heart when I say the word gay.
Double standard much, Jeff?
Gay is robbing other people of their dignity. It's like you're taking someone's
lifestyle. Use the word.
Good explanation, Jeff.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, even when I gave my son the talk, like I decided when my son was 12, I was going to give him the talk about a special hug.
You waited till 12? What is this, like 1954?
My dad waited till 19.
He just turned 12.
The ship had sailed.
I never got the talk. We made this big, like, kind of guys' weekend sort of thing. It was really actually pretty funny. My son's probably the funniest human being I've ever known. He when we had that talk, like I talked about everything, man. And
everything,
we
Jeff.
talked about homosexuality.
Everything.
Pretty much. It was pretty. It was.
Oh God!
It was a pretty awkward conversation.
Did you think it was awkward?
Oh, we both thought it was. I took him to Stone Mountain in Georgia and Atlanta. Mountain? We walked up to that Bone Mountain. Stone Mountain.
Right, Stone Mountain. Okay, I'm sorry. I must have misheard you. Thanks, Skype. Get your shit together.
We walked up to the top. And then we sat on the side of the mountain and we just looked off into the distance. We never made eye contact. But during that conversation, like we talked about homosexuality and I said, and so while we're talking about that, I mean, you know what the word gay is, right? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, I want to challenge you. So at 12 years old, I challenged him. I want to challenge you not to use that word to talk about things you don't like, because I know it's not that crazy or whatever, but it's just like, that's people's reality. That's people's lifestyle. And you like it, like it's insulting to them.
It sounds like you do this to a lot of people, Jeff. You're like, you hear something and you're like, you know what? Can I challenge you? Can I challenge you for a moment?
But I do it to myself too. I was like, I challenge myself.
Oh,
like,
I know. No one's safe. Not even you. I mean, what's going on?
No one's safe from Jeff's challenges.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my way of saying to kids, like, you're an idiot for doing this. So
okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, how did this talk go with your son? Like, how effective was it?
It was really awesome, actually. And I convinced them we took a series of photos that I turned into, I think,
let's stop the podcast keeps running. We took a series of photos,
a slideshow that I could go to school and be like, hey, I gave my son the talk this weekend, and then we took pictures of him like punching me in the face or looking shocked and like different things.
Oh, that's awesome.
I wanted to. He actually just walked in here and waved at me. He's like 6'2" now. He's like way taller than me.
Oh my gosh.
He's a super funny kid. Does some crazy stuff. Good crazy stuff. Like. In 6th grade, he ate a Skittle out of a urinal for $5 at school.
Wow.
And I didn't know this until 8th grade. We were driving him and his friend around, and his friend's like, remember when you ate that Skittle out the urinal? I'm like, what? Man. And it's like, yeah, $5, Dad. I'm like, kind of respected it.
Dude, it's hard up for some cash. Do you guys not do allowances there? What's going on?
He needs to get a job.
Oh yeah, I heard that. I had that talk. My parents failed miserably at giving me the SEX talk.
It's weird because Beth actually gave me that talk.
Did she give you the talk?
Yeah, your mom actually.
That's so crazy. I kind of feel like there was one point when my parents were having the sex talk with me, and I was like, "Do you know what you're talking about? Are you sure that's how it's supposed to happen?"
When my wife gave my daughter the talk, and she had a book. She just went by this book. She's like, I didn't stray from the book.
She didn't even look at your daughter.
Like, I just read the book. I kind of like most things in life, I just wing. So I just kind of winged it. I had a basic idea of what I wanted to do or talk about. And so I just we talked about it. It was very awkward.
You show your kid like 50 Shades of Grey, the movie, and you're like, now we're going to talk about that with the youth group.
Speaking of tearing down the pillar of marriage.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we normally do the segment, Jeff, on the podcast that we are now coining B1, break one, blow one.
No.
Yes, we are.
Is that what we're calling it?
Yes. It's B1, break one, blow one, and we can explain ourselves later.
Okay.
So this is basically if you could be in any band ever that's ever existed and incorporate yourself as a founding member, who would it be? If you could break one band up and they just strike them from the earth, most people choose Nickelback, and you never have to worry about them again.
That could be any band from history. So like if you want Fugazi to never have existed.
Right. And then blow one is blowing up now.
A band that exists now.
Like make them super famous?
No.
Or like destroy them.
Destroy them.
Okay. I know, but blow up, like they blew up, man. Like they're huge. They're everywhere. All right. So B1. Okay. Be in any band. And the band would still be just as creative and just as awesome.
And you get all the credit.
And I would get the credit.
Why not?
This is sacrilege. Let's see. Gosh, who do I go with? I mean, like squad-wise, the correct answer would be the Clash, but I just feel like I just can't even go there. So I would say, just because they're one of my favorite bands ever, which they bring out a lot of hostility in some people, but like U2, U2.
No!
I
thought you were going to say ICP for a second.
Insane Clown Posse.
What would you do? What would you do in U2? Would you sing
anything? Like, God, I don't. So would it be the same four members and me, or am I just taking one of their spots?
One if you wanted to. This is your reality.
Gosh, could I just be the rhythm guitarist? Just stand in the back and just watch the magic happen. Yeah, that's totally fine. So I get chills, man. I know a lot of people think Bono's pompous, man, but U2, dude, their lyrics, man. It's some good wrestling. That's great. I mean, so I wouldn't take out Bono unless it meant that I wrote Bono's lyrics, and then I would be Bono, because I just find a lot of their lyrics they're challenging, man. If you had to break one up, break up any band right now? Of all time, a band, break them up. Nickelback was such an easy one to pick. I kind of mentioned it ahead of time so that you would put some more. I mean, you love thinking deeply about stuff, Jeff. So this shouldn't be a problem for you. Yeah. Bands. Who's a band that I just hate? Who's a band that I'm so loving? That's the problem with me.
That's your problem, Jeff.
I'm such a nice guy. What am I gonna do? This is gonna end, and I'm gonna call you and be like, it was no, I changed my answer. Gosh, any band I could break up. Could I go back in time and break the Beatles up before they do Sgt. Pepper's, so that I could always remember them as the Fab Four? You know what? That is full circle, dude. You just tied this into the first 3 minutes of our conversation. Yeah. Brilliant. Come back and just right before Sgt. Pepper's would be like, guys, let's run its course. It's over.
You know what?
Never like you're right.
We've screwed this segment completely up.
We did it. Nobody knows that until you say something out loud.
We've done this several times, and this is the only time we did this wrong.
We do it differently every time.
So it's not B1, break one, blow one. Okay. Blow one and break one are the same thing.
Are they the same one?
So it's B1, blow one, begin one.
Begin one.
Begin one is you get to pick... you get to pick members.
All-star team.
And you're putting together a band today.
I'm putting a band together today.
We need the name and the team.
And if you don't pick John, he's going to be a little hurt by that.
He's your brother.
Yeah. So of course, me on lead vocals.
Sure.
Let's see. Bass player. Am I allowed to pick SquadFive-O members?
This is your reality.
Pick John. He's the best bass player I know, man. Like he's probably one of the best bass players I've ever met in my life. So I got to have John. So now we got that brother dynamic going on. On drums, Topper Heaton from The Clash, because he can play whatever we want to play. We'd have no pre-heroin, no heroin, before he got all those
straight edge on the straight edge Clash.
Let's see. On guitar, gotta do. Who's just gonna? So we get two guitar players. Keith Richards, of course, just for the cool factor. Early Keith Richards, not my grandpa.
So
Keith Richards.
1896 Keith Richards.
Yeah. When he was in his prime.
Keith Richards.
When he was looking for Jack the Ripper. He's trying to solve those mysteries. So who we got John on bass. We got Topper on drums. We got Keith on one of the guitars. On the other guitar, just because everyone always talks shit about him, I'm going with the Edge. I like the Edge, man. People don't think you can play
what
guitar.
What a sound you'll have.
I love it, man. It's just Ray Charles on keys, man.
Yes,
Ray Charles.
Georgia!
Yeah. And now we have some diversity.
That's
in the
true.
group. Got
That's
that
cool.
diversity,
One black guy.
man.
That's great.
Yeah, it's real diverse.
That's what white people consider diversity to be.
Dude, diverse. We're diverse.
Okay, so I need to tell you this before Davey does our lightning round. My father-in-law is a newspaper guy, and he covered Cornerstone. I can't remember the year of it. It's like 2002, 3, 4 maybe. My wife puts this down as one of her favorite memories that she had of childhood was being with her dad. And they were so stoked to be at Cornerstone together because he got a press pass to come in and like he could interview all the bands and whatever. He thought that was super rad. But what the story that they always talk about from this experience at Cornerstone was watching Squad play. And I was trying to get her to remind me of this story last night because I knew we were going to be doing this interview today. And she was like, I don't think that they even played any of their own songs. I think they just covered The Clash for the entire set. And I looked over and I just remember seeing my dad look the happiest that I've ever seen him. And she said that memory of SquadFive-O covering The Clash at Cornerstone with my dad, best weekend of my life. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Maybe not ever be able to top it. So yeah, I want to thank you on behalf of her who would never get on a microphone and say anything about it, but yeah,
you're welcome. We did do all Clash songs. That was pretty awesome because we would play Cornerstone twice. We do the Tooth and Nail thing, and then whatever our normal slot was. So we were always trying to do some type of special set for the Tooth and Nail set. And that year we did all Clash.
That's awesome. Did you guys cover London Calling? Was that on the set list?
Yeah, we did London Calling. I think my favorite one was White Riot.
Yeah,
that place went bonkers. We started. I see. There's actually a pretty cool video online of that one, and it just looks like pandemonium. Yeah. It's so much fun. Oh, it was such a fun.
That's
set,
amazing,
man.
Dude.
And the fun thing about Squad too is that everyone was good enough with their instruments, and we were good enough at playing together that like we never even actually practiced those songs together. We just like everyone's like learn the parts. These are the songs, and then we were in the hotel room. I think the day of. And everyone just had their guitars unplugged, and Dave was like beating on his legs or something.
Oh my God.
And I was just singing out loud. And we're just like, let's run through it. And we ran through. We're like, yeah, should be good. And then that was it. And then we did another set a few years before that, or maybe the year before. We did a dance party where every song we played had the word dance in the title. Yes. So like Dancing with Myself, Dancing in the Dark, like all these covers. And the same thing. It's like we never even ran through them. We're just like, here's the songs, learn your part. And then played them.
Oh my God. That's amazing. That's actually really cool to hear the origin story. Like, oh yeah, it's because they didn't really care. They were hanging out in the hotel room. You guys doing your thing made somebody's best musical memory. So I think that's pretty powerful.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So Davey, you've got the lightning round.
Do I?
Yeah, you were just showing me.
No, that was
from another interview.
That was a different thing. We can do it real quick. Okay, You're just going to say the first one that comes to your head. I don't want you to think about it at all. Okay? Just the first thing that comes to your head.
Don't be overthinking, Jeff.
Okay.
Beatles or Stones?
Stones.
Trees or concrete?
Trees.
Restaurants or airplanes?
These are so
airplanes.
Pickles or cucumbers?
Neither.
That's not an answer.
Cucumbers if I have to choose.
Yellow or green?
Green.
Me or Matt?
Me.
That was so clever.
Okay, that's all I got, Jeff.
He did think about it though for a second.
Lightning round was tough.
Thanks, man. It was literally on the fly. Thanks, everybody.
Sometimes with people that like, oh my gosh, is that a dog on the screen?
It's my basset hound.
That's awesome.
Kingsley, what's up, dog?
Hey, buddy.
No, he respects me actually. He just came in here to sleep.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, but honestly, dude, thanks for sitting down with us. We really appreciate it. It's been like 3 hours, almost 4 hours.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's flown by, man.
Well, we normally just let it go as long as it'll go. We certainly don't want to monopolize your time. We know that you've got a family and everything to get back to, but this was awesome. Do you have any final thoughts? Or anything that you kind of want people to know that maybe we didn't get to, or?
I think we covered most everything, man, didn't we?
Pretty thoroughly.
I think we covered all the bases. I mean, this is my first day of spring break. We started spring break today, so it was fun spending 3 hours of it with you guys. And I always challenge my kids every time they go home for the weekend. Challenge my kids when they go home for the weekend. Say no to drugs, man.
Say no to drugs, man. Awesome.
Say no to drugs, man. However many times it takes.
Okay, so we'll probably end the podcast right there. Hey, 11D Lifers, thanks so much for sticking with us on this episode. If you did not hear the first half of this conversation, I encourage you to go pick it up. It is literally the one right before this. Hey, thank you for clicking subscribe on our podcast. Thank you for telling your friends about it. Thank you for sending us your questions and your comments on Twitter, on Facebook, everywhere that you can get a hold of our band. This podcast has brought an amazingly cool other dimension to our band, 11D7. It has broadened the conversation. It is widening the circle. You guys are making that happen. It's all your fault. So thank you so much for everything that you do for us. Thanks for letting us be a part of your week, and we will see you next time. Love y'all.